I woke with a start. Even sitting up, my arms flailing as if in a fight for my very life, I was. In my dream were 6 cobras, 3 on each side, coiled high, their mouths wide and ready for attack. Never had I felt the sense of evil, feel the very sweat of my body, now fully awake and taking in with relief my real surroundings, lying on the edge of a cliff over the Dead Sea at En-Gedi. Hunger quickly replaced the horror of the early morning dream. The promise of water near, fed from a babbling creek, living water, gave assurance of at least a partial satisfaction. It had been 3 days into my desert wanderings, fasting, searching in the solace and beauty of the desert for answers. I hoped, at least, as to my mission, the way Papa would have me speak, the very presence of God's loving rule in a world still filled with chaos, the rule of power striking down on the very subjects it is to protect. I knew from experience that the 3rd day of hunger is often the worst, at least in the early stages. Its demanding and gnawing cravings would lessen with each passing day after 3 and settle into an empty longing as the body refocused on spiritual concerns, drawing from energy reserves we are unaware of. But that was tomorrow's hope. My thoughts wandered to home, to Mama and her sister Salome, Rebecca's wedding, and to my new disciples John and Andrew, with whom I had spent the first day of this journey, laughing and talking of our childhood and of the nature of hope that filled not only Israel, but the whole world, it seemed. The chaos of human need was about to give way to a new hope that many believed might come from the ancient Near East, from within Judea itself. "So who are you?" my beloved John had asked on our first day as rabbi and student. Andrew, who was more reserved than John, simply echoed the question, but with a simple, "Yes, tell us, Master." Their question echoed against the cavern walls of my own mind. Tell us now, Master. Are you the one?" I was a little surprised at the audacity of these new students. I turned my head away as if to escape their insolence, or perhaps the very question. I could not tell. So real was the daydream, so deep the fog of my mind, that I turned to address my students. I am when I realized they were not real. My eyes opened with a start, searching as in a haze my surroundings inside a cavern, the dawn's first light just now filtering in. Was I dreaming or remembering? Perhaps both. Slowly my eyes adjusted to the sandstone cavern with walls of the cave. I was grateful that the dream of cobras was a past event, early on, before traveling deeper into the desert to the south and east of En-Gedi. But that was some 40 days earlier. I sat up, finding a rock to lean against, smiling at no one. Even my dreams have dreams. Perhaps I should end my fast and eat. My body took the hint, and hunger, long suppressed, reasserted itself. Yet remained was the question I had been asking with ever-increasing passion. Am I the Messiah of God? And if I am, what will be the end of it all? Will it be the renewal of all things promised by Isaiah and Joel, sworn to my papa's friend David long ago? I foresaw that the Lord was always with me, because he is at my right hand. I won't be shaken. Therefore my heart was glad and my tongue rejoiced. Moreover, my body will live in hope, because you won't abandon me to the grave, nor permit your Holy One to experience decay. Blessed be the scriptures, I whispered to no one. My thoughts continued their random circle. Or am I the suffering one of Isaiah's vision, who was despised and avoided by others, a man who suffered, who knew sickness well? like someone from whom people hide their faces. Such were the questions rushing in as I, now fully awakened, reached up, grasping the rocky shelf of what had become my new home. My heart was still aching to understand my mission inside these questions, which first drove me from the watery comfort of the Jordan and the Baptist's embrace, pushing south and into the very hills, perhaps the very cave that David had used to hide as Saul's insanity bore down upon him in the 40 days that followed. I had made my way deep into the Arabian desert, to a high mountain and a deep cavern sewn into the rocky face. The locals called it the Mountain of Moses. Now, standing carefully and allowing my body to work past the initial dizziness that accompanies great hunger, I took in my surroundings, the light of the morning sun bathing the wall opposite me in her golden waves, the heat of the desert seeming to make even the sun obey its rhythms, the yellow separating in shades of color like a rainbow, all variations on a golden brown. Glancing out toward the opening of the cavern was a light, brilliant as the stars at night, but near as a woman's beautiful form. I hungered for the feel of human touch. My stomach moaned as the apparition I thought at first seemed to move. Was it an angel, I wondered? Never had I seen such a brilliant and lovely form. Or had I? My heart searched for a memory in the feeling of something or someone familiar. The memory I could not find. Looking down at its feet and laying atop a rock I used for sitting was a luscious and perfectly formed bread like only my mama could make. Into my senses poured the lure of smells, sweet and rich and deep. I wanted to possess it with both of my hands, grasping and tearing, my mouth consumed by its delicacies, but refrained, knowing that such an angelic gift from my papa should not be torn asunder like the reach of an animal tearing at a feast, without the thanksgiving that we who are the image of the One always give, our appetites increased by the savoring of God's good gifts. From within the beauty of light came a voice smooth and rich, heavenly. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. If, even in my gnawing hunger, my mind clouded as in a fog of sleep, I could feel the warming of anxiety rise from deep within. I had never heard my papa's voice speak by way of a question, mostly in sentences with periods. Occasionally, an exclamation mark might accompany an urgent command, but never a question, especially in terms of my identity. Questions were the reserve of human need, not heaven's. I thought my lips almost whispering the truth Papa had just affirmed in the baptism. This is my son, whom I love. And why the command to turn this rock into bread? My mind corrected, looking once more at the bread spread out before me like a gift from heaven itself. Into my mind came the memory of Israel from this very desert. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger and then feeding you with manna which neither you nor your ancestors had known. My eyes began to focus anew. The heat waves that seemed to fill the cavern began to dissipate, and the bread slowly became what it was, a rock sitting on another rock. Looking over, and straight at the being whose grandeur was brilliant light, I quietly spoke the rest of Moses' words. To teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. The light suddenly changed, as if the sun were hidden behind a cloud. Gray and brown returned as the cave became the dark sanctuary it had been in these 40 days. The brilliant light was now just a foggy mist that seemed to be coiling down to the ground, and whose appearance now seemed deadly as its cold, empty eyes seemed to slither out of the mouth of the cave and into the desert heat. I collapsed, the ground embracing with the sound of impact my now limp body.